Hi guys, back with another video. As I mentioned a couple of videos ago, but I highly recommend more than actually listening to me mumble around these topics is read my notes that I write as part of the description of every video that we have. So currently we've just dealt with a topic here that says develop solutions for that use Azure blob storage. So now we are moving into another field that's now talking about Azure Functions, which I'm excited about. So implement Azure Functions. Then the first subtopic in there says explore Azure Functions. So functions are useful as small APIs and microservices. And microservices useful for tasks running on schedule, small contained tasks like image or order processing and file management. Can be used in IoT, integrated systems, and data processing. Functions support triggers to execute code and bindings for supplying code for input and output data. So we use triggers to execute code and we use bindings to provide input or output data. Cool. So we are here comparing Azure Functions and Logic Apps, right? Azure Functions in terms of coding, they are code first. Logic Apps are designer first. In terms of connectivity, about 1,000 built-in binding types, write code for custom bindings, right? If you can write code for custom bindings. For Logic Apps, we have large collection of connectors, enterprise integration packs for B2B scenarios, building custom connectors. So Logic Apps, if I remember well, what would happen is you can literally connect this thing to things like Twitter, Gmail, Outlook, or whatever the case might be. But then with this one, you need to write up the code yourself, but you have bindings that allow you to write information into things like your service bus and the likes. So actions under Azure Functions, each activity is an Azure function. Write code for activity functions. Then for Logic Apps, in terms of actions, we have large collection of ready-made actions. Then in terms of monitoring, for Azure Functions, we can use Azure Application Insights. For Logic Apps, we can use the Azure Portal or Azure Monitor Logs for monitoring purposes. Then for management, for Azure Functions, we can use REST APIs, Visual Studio. And for management for Logic Apps, we can use the Azure Portal, REST API, PowerShell, and Visual Studio. So you can create Logic Apps on Visual Studio. So it seems. Take note of that because I think this is an exam question. You might come across it. Visual Studio, you can create Logic Apps on Visual Studio. Then execution context. For Azure Functions, we can run locally or in the cloud because this thing is code. Essentially, you can run it on Visual Studio. Then for Logic Apps, it supports run anywhere scenario, right? Compare functions with web jobs, right? Serverless app model with automatic scaling functions support that, web jobs do not support that. Develop and test in browser functions allow that, web jobs do not. Pay-per-use pricing, Azure functions support that, web jobs do not. Integration with Logic Apps, you can with functions, you can't with web jobs. Then trigger events. So for both web jobs and functions, we have timer triggers, we have Azure Storage Queue and Blob triggers, we have Azure Service Bus Queue and Topics triggers, we have Cosmos DB triggers, we have Azure Event Hub triggers, and then for Azure Functions, we have HTTP or webhook triggers, and we have Azure Event Grid triggers as well. Those we don't have with web jobs, but web jobs have file system triggers that we don't have in functions. Those are the only differences there. Azure Functions offer more developer productivity, programming language flexibility, development environment, integration to Azure services, and pricing compared to app service web jobs. So remember, you can run this thing completely at serverless, where the pricing is pay per use. So where you don't actually have to set up an app service plan to run this thing. While here, you technically need that. Then here we compare Azure function hosting options. There are three main hosting options that we have there, which is the consumption plan, functions premium plan. Then we have app service dedicated, which is the dedicated plan. So using the app service plan, functions premium plan, I'm not sure about what that means, but then on consumption plan, essentially you pay for what you use. I think premium does the same, but then it gives you more features. Plans are generally available on Windows and Linux. So all these plans that we have mentioned, the three plans available on Windows and Linux. The hosting plan chosen dictates the following. So if you choose a plan, there's benefits to it and all of that. So how the function scales, then I'm assuming premium will give you more scaling there. The resources available for each function app instance, support for advanced functionality such as Azure Virtual Network connectivity. Cool. So we're looking at the plan versus the benefits. Consumption plan, this is the default hosting plan. It scales automatically and you can only pay for compute resources when your functions are running. Instances of the function host are dynamically added and removed based on the number of incoming requests. So in consumption plan, our functions scale automatically. We don't have to do anything. Functions premium plan automatically scales based on demand using pre-warmed workers which run applications with no delay after being idle. Runs on more powerful instances and connects to virtual networks. So consumption plan, you can't connect to a virtual network. This one you can. Also, this one runs on much bigger servers, the premium one, the premium plan. Also, there's no delays when it adds and reduces instances. App service plan one now says run your functions within an app service plan at regular app service plan rates. Best for long running scenarios where durable functions cannot be used. So this is where now you have those functions that process a bunch of information. Let's say, for example, a function that does a database cleanup of some sort after hours or so. You'd have that in an app service plan because otherwise the compute that you'll pay there will cost an arm and a leg. Then here they say there are two other hosting options which provide the highest amount of control and isolation in which to run your functions. You can run your functions on ASE, which is the app service environment. Alternatively, you can run your functions on Kubernetes. So app service environment is an app service feature that provides a fully isolated and dedicated environment for securely running app service apps at high scale. Kubernetes provides a fully isolated and dedicated environment running on top of the Kubernetes platform. For more information, read up on Azure Functions on Kubernetes. Right? That's cool. Should we dig deep into this or more? Yeah, let's do the if running functions on app service plan need to enable always on to ensure that the functions run. Okay, let's cut it here. Then we'll go through the storage account requirements, scale, that runtime, limit, scale out. We'll do that on the next video. Let's just go through with this content because I feel like there's a lot of information that we could harvest from there. Cool.